Okay, for this demo we're going to finish the skirt by putting the waistband on. Okay, so the waistband is actually smaller. The part of the waistband that sews onto the waist of the skirt is actually a little smaller. Basically, the wearing ease has been taken out of the waistband. Okay, so we have to shrink or ease the skirt waist to the waistband. That's done because the skirt, it has wearing ease in there, so it makes it a little easier for the wearer to move around in there and to sit, and gives a little space to breathe. The waistband doesn't have any wearing ease, so it can hold the skirt very tight, not too tight, but nice and snugly onto the waist of the wearer. Okay, so our ease, what we're going to do, if we remember the ease stitches demo, we're going to ease, here's my side seam, and here's my pocket opening and pleat. Okay, so this is basically where the princess seam would be. So we're going to start, we're going to do 2 rows of ease stitches right across here. We're going to start an inch before the side seam, and we're going to stitch just above our stay stitching, and we're going to stop an inch after this pleat, and then we'll do another row of stay stitching ease stitches right above that, and we'll do the same thing on this side of the skirt. Start an inch before the pocket opening, start an inch before our side seam and end an inch after the pleat and pocket opening. Okay, so let's go do that right now. Something that's helpful is, if you haven't already, unzip the back of your zipper, and it'll make it much easier to get in there in the sewing machine. Alright, put a couple pins in to help mark out. So here's my side seam right here. I'm going to put a pin in about an inch before my side seam. And again, here's my pocket opening and my pleat. I want to stop these ease stitches about an inch after that. Alright, for my ease stitching, I'm going to lengthen my stitch. So I'm not going to do a large gathering stitch. I'm just going to ease stitch, so around 3.5 for my machine. And if you're doing it, I believe at the Juki, we did about 3.5 there as well. Okay, leave long tails on your thread so that you can pull them when it's time to ease. And let's go to it. There we go. So there's one row. Pins out of the way. And now I'll do a second row, and I'm going to do that row just 1/8 of an inch above that first row of ease stitching. So, and you can see the center, that's right where my needle comes down. So I'm going to use this side of my foot. I'm going to use this side of my foot as a guide. I'll put that right along. When I'm sewing my next row, I'll let my ease stitches run right along the side of this toe. And then that's about an 1/8 of an inch away. Okay, so there's one side done. I don't know if you can see it very well, but I have 2 rows in there. So now I'll do the other side. Okay, again, I'm going to start at about an inch before my pleat and pocket opening, and then an inch after my side seam. Now, it's easy to get confused. Sometimes there ends up being a lot of rows of stitching up here because we have our stay stitching, we have the stitching we did to hold our pocket opening and pleat in place. So kind of just got to keep track of everything and keep an eye on it. Okay, that's one row, and now for one more. Make sure you put your sheen stitch, shorten your stitch back to your construction stitch. Alright, now let's attach our waistband. Now don't forget on our waistband, so here's our waistband right here, okay? What we did, if anybody forgot, the first thing we did is we put our interfacing in. And remember that there's, on this waistband, one side has 2 notches at center back. 1, 2, sorry, not center back, but the back princess. 1, 2, and 1, 2. And then the other side, doesn't have any notches in those areas. So, as you can see, the interfacing goes on the side that has the 2 notches. Your interfacing will have those 2 notches too. You'll line those up, and then you'll baste it in. And then we press the whole thing in half. Alright, we stay stitched each side at 1/2 inch, and then the side that doesn't have the interfacing, we pressed under with the iron. Okay, and that's how we prepared our waistband. Alright, so let's start by attaching our waistband. Again, here's our skirt. Notice at center front, we have a notch. Okay, the side with the interfacing is what attaches to our skirt. Okay. Look for your center front notch. So how do you tell? If you find the 2 notches in the back, so you can see right here and right here I have 2 notches, then you want to move into your next notch. That's your princess seam notches. Those will match up with your dart. This is your side seam notch, the next notch in. The next one is your next princess seam notch, which should match up probably with your pocket opening your pleat. And then the one right here, that's our center front notch. So let's line up center front to center front. There we are. If your interfacing is a little off from your fabric, that's fine. You know, mine's off about 1/16 there. Line up the fabric notches, not the interfacing ones. And let's put a pin in it. Okay. Now ignore this notch that's lining up with your these next 2 notches. So that's my princess, my side seam. Okay. Right now, what I want to go is to my center back notch. Okay. So that's right there. Remember, one side has an underlap, and the other side of the waistband will finish right to center back. Okay. So I'm going to find my center back notch, and I'm going to line that up with, some of this thread out of here. I'm going to line up my center back notch, which is right here, because this has the overlap, okay, right with my center back, which is right there. And let's go to the other side and line up our center back notches. Like so. And there should only be a 1/2 inch seam allowance here now. Lining that up. And there we go. Now we can look and see how much we have to ease. Okay. You can see actually that there isn't too much ease on this side. actually very little. I almost didn't even need those E-stitches. This happens sometimes because part of it is the interfacing in our pocket. Okay, eats up the dress fabric more and makes it so there's less ease. Okay, so that's the side that has the pocket facing and interfacing that's thicker than the other side. So sometimes it shrinks down our waist. So if that's the case, just go. I'm going to line up my notch. So here's my center front. I'm going to line up my next notch. That should line up right around your pleat or your pocket opening. Put a pin in there. And keep moving to the back. Your next notch should line up around your side seam. And then the other one should be at your princess or back dart. Okay, oops. Let's circle around here now to the other side and see how we're doing. Here you can see, I don't know if you can see it well, but you can see that my skirt is a little bigger than the waistband. Okay, so now I need to ease this in a little. So I'm going to come back here. On this side, I'm grabbing two of those threads. Okay, these are my E-stitches. You can see it easier on my lining side. On this side, close to the center front, I'm going to put a pin in real close. I'm going to take those two threads just on one side and I'm going to lock it in. I'm going to wrap it around a couple times. What this does is keep it so when I pull these E-stitches from this side, it doesn't pull them all the way through. And then I lose my ease. So I'm going to grab my E-stitches, my E's threads. You want the same threads on the same sides. So you should have two on each side. Okay, this is my bobbin side, the side of my lining. I'm going to ease that now. So I'm just pulling a little ease in here. It doesn't need a ton of ease. There we are. You want to take in more than you need. Okay. So let's see, let's match this up again. There, that's actually pretty perfect. Okay, you can see when I pull my waistband and my skirt tight with each other, they're about the same. Okay, and that's what we want. So I'm just going to pull this a little tighter and then make sure it's perfect by pulling them exactly up. That's right where I want it. Okay, so now take just your skirt. Put another pin in right on this side and wrap that thread around that pin like so. That locks us in place and keeps those E-stitches from coming out. Okay. Now we're just going to try to move these E-stitches. We have the two pins here. I'm going to tell you something right now. You most likely, unless you have a thin fabric, are not going to be able to move any of that ease past your pocket opening. So you're just going to move it back this way and try to get them to be as even in between that pin and that pocket opening as you can. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Let's see how it goes. Alright, looks good. So now let's go ahead and pin at each of our notches again. Alright, there it is. The waistband has been pinned and fitted to my skirt. Now we can go ahead and stitch it on at a 1/2 inch all the way around. Alright, so back to the sewing machine. Alright, so with my waistband facing up, I am now going to stitch on the waistband at a 1/2 inch. Alright, so this is the side with the overlap. Notice I've my waistband, which is pressed over, I'm moving that out of the way. I just want to catch that one side of my waistband, the side with the interfacing in it, to my waist of my skirt. Okay, and you're going to back tack at beginning and end because this is permanent. We want that waistband to stay on forever. Alright, 1/2 inch seam allowance. Here we go. Now you have a lot of layers here and you're trying to keep things lined up. So, remember we don't like to sew over our pins, but if you're worried about things becoming unaligned, you can walk your needle over your pin like so. Okay. I have my skirt side down because that's the side with the ease. I want to make sure it stays those feed dogs will help continue to ease in the skirt to my waistband. It's important to remember that this is a model skirt, a practice skirt, okay? So the fact that one side needs ease and the other side needs no ease or will need less ease, yes, it will look a little uneven probably or a little different when you're done, but this is to learn those skills. So it's not an issue. If we're making this for a client, or for yourself, or for whoever, obviously, you wouldn't have one pocket with a facing and one without, and you wouldn't put fusible on one pocket and then one pocket, the same kind of pocket on the other side. You'd do a woven interfacing. There's really no reason for that on a symmetrical garment. So that's why we end up with these differences in this skirt. Okay, almost to the end here. Okay, there we are. Okay, let's see how we did. So let's look inside here. And now, I check this. Things seem to be lining up well. Good. And on here, make sure there's no big indiscretions here. Those are my eases. Okay, it looks good. Alright, next we need to sew the back of our waistband shut. Okay, so remember one side has 1/2 inch seam allowance and the other side has an overlap of about an inch and then a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and fold this back on itself like so, with our seam allowance still pressed in and up towards the inside of the waistband. Okay, and I'll put a pin in there. So let's do that back at the sewing machine. Okay, so what we're going to do on our waistband now is, in the end, the waistband is going to fold down and over like so. And then we'll do a hidden slip stitch to hide that in place. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to fold the waistband back on itself. Okay, we have a crease line there from when we pressed it in. Okay, we're going to fold right back on itself. Keep the seam allowance that's not attached to the skirt facing up into the waistband. And bring it back. those edges. And now I'm going to take a pin and put it right in there and hold it in place. Okay. And we'll do the same thing on this side as well. Okay. So this is the side that has the underlap. Same thing. Make sure that the seam allowance is folded to the inside, or pressed to the inside like it should be. Fold this all back. Okay. Now, we will stitch this at a 1/2 inch. Alright, so this is my overlap side, or sorry, underlap side. Okay, and I'm going to stitch this right at a 1/2 inch. Make sure that seam allowance is right up in there. It should be. And back tack on both. Okay. Once that happens, trim the seam allowance down to a 1/4 inch, and then right at this point here, okay, where it's folded back on itself, clip it at an angle just like so. Alright, and now let's go to the other side. Now we only have a 1/2 inch to work with on this side. Alright. Now most people want to stitch exactly lined up right with the lap part of our zipper. Okay. If we think about this, this is all going to fold to the inside and create bulk. So what I like to do is I like to start about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch. So I'm not going to take my full 1/2 inch. Alright. If you do, it always ends up too bulky. It never lines up well. So see my pin right here? That's about where I'm going to sew. Okay, there's my lap zipper, the cover, the lap part of it. So I'm going to sew that about that far away. So I'm not taking my full 1/2 inch. Okay, I don't know if you can see it, but right there is my 1/2 inch mark. Okay, so I'm taking a little less, back tack beginning and end. Go. And now let's cut our threads. And again, cut that down to about a 1/4 and clip in at that point. Okay, so now let's flip our waistbands right side out, pushing those corners right in. Use your point turner and just gently massage that out. There we go. That's the side that has no underlap and lines right up with our lap. And then on the other side, let's do the same thing. Get that corner pushed right up in there and push it out like so. Now if your seam allowance here on this edge, you see I have your little seam allowance right there. If that's sticking out, sometimes I'll just angle that just a little bit to kind of keep it up inside. Like so. Now, let's give each of these a press. Remember, we already pressed a crease in here, so let's be careful not to press a new crease. Okay, I got that worked out to the edge. Make sure that seam allowance is right to the edge and not inside there. Okay. And we give that a nice little press. And I'm just going to put a pin in here to hold it in place. And let's go to the other side and do the same thing. Make sure all that's folded up. Get that seam allowance. Stick it. Let's get all those threads out of the way. Press that. There we go. And let's put a pin in there. Okay, now the waistband is machine stitched on. Now we're just going to pin it to the rest of our, to our skirt inside here, because we're going to do handwork in here later. So bring down this folded edge. It should, if everything's right, should come down to about where your stay stitching is. All right, you shouldn't be pulling it in like this to make it fit in your crease right here. You don't want that. You want that crease to lay nice and flat, and everything should line up. Okay. Now, it may not line up perfectly. This is the first time you're sewing this skirt, and that's okay. Just do your best. So I'm just going to go through here and just throw a pin in about every, I don't know what, 2-3 inches. Until we're ready to hand tack that. I like to not go all the way from one side to another side, because I find that sometimes I stretch my waistband and it begins to rope and twist. So I like to work a little bit on one side and then move to the other side and work a little bit there. Make sure I'm staying nice and even. Okay, my waistband is laying nice and flat. There's my easing. Again, that easing we did, remember how one side eased? We had to ease by hand. Actually pull the ease threads, and the other we didn't. I'm sure the other side we didn't have to pull the ease threads. Just easing, putting the ease stitches in, probably gave us just the right amount of ease for us to do it. Basically crimped it. Okay. And one more. And there we go. Alright. And then that is going to end up, I'll pull up the zipper. We'll end up putting a skirt hook and eye on here later, but that will end up like so. Okay, and that will be on the inside. So that's what the inside looks like. And there's the front of it. Okay, so our skirt waistband has now been attached. And then next we'll do handwork, which will be in a different video.